Well, it's a bizarre topic, so I'll kind of babble for a little bit before I really get started. RDDs, radiation dispersal device, or dirty bombs. Dirty bombs are a subset of the larger category of weapons: chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. And the initial and deadliest example was mustard gas in World War I. In fact, almost all of the terminology that we think of as nuclear, like détente and mutually assured destruction and all that, came out of World War I mustard gas, because the chemicals are the easiest to disperse, then biological, and then radiological. Nuclear weapons, of course, are different because they're not an agent to be dispersed, but are just a very, very big bomb. So the real weapon in a dirty bomb is public panic. And the best defense is a rational, rapid response. And it has to be fast, and it has to be rational, and it can't include fear-mongering and linear no-threshold dose kind of thinking. Dirty bomb effects are much closer to a rad waste spill than to a nuclear bomb. Okay? But again, the response must not be similar to Superfund cleanup, which takes years, but must be rapid and immediate, days, or the attack will have been a complete success. And the key to this is incident command. So any of you who understand incident command, fire and police and FBI stuff, you'll recognize that term. So again, not a dirty bomb. This is a dirty bomb. So if you have, say, a 25-gram Cesium-137 source, which is about 2,200 Curies, it's lethal at 1 meter dose in about 10 minutes. And it's 1,000 rem per hour. 1,500 ammonium nitrate fuel oil bomb, as was detonated at Oklahoma City, it's not lethal because it's spread over 10 city blocks, and it comes out to less than a microcurie per square foot, because the surface area in a 10 by 10 city block is about 1 billion square feet. 1 billion square feet is a lot of surface area, and if you have a good car bomb or a good truck bomb, you disperse it like you want to, the whole point is to disperse it and contaminate a large area, then you're talking about 1 billion square feet. So dirty bombs are self-limiting in the sense that the more dispersed it is, the less the dose. So there's kind of a critical point at which the dispersal makes the dirty bomb not very effective in terms of effect, but it's actually the fear that matters. You use a conventional bomb or method, so you can either use a car bomb or you can dump it out the rear of a crop duster, but it's the bomb that gives you the headlines, okay? So a bomb wakes everyone up. If you just drizzle it out the back of a crop duster, no one's even going to know what happens. As Sig Hecker quoted, they're weapons of mass disruption, okay, that cause panic disproportional to the actual danger. And the whole point is to contaminate vital infrastructure and trigger large economic consequences. Every day that Lower Manhattan is shut down costs about $60 million. So if you actually detonate an effective dirty bomb in downtown Manhattan, and everyone freaks out and no one goes to work or anything, and it takes a year to clean up, then there's your $500 billion cost. And that would be considered a huge success by a perpetrator. While most radiological sources are small with little real consequence, large RDDs over 50,000 Curie actually are feasible, and they could have major consequences. Logistically, this is about the same as 9/11. Not easy, not super hard, doable, but again, logistically about the same. And it's imperative to reduce the vulnerabilities, lessen the impact, and mitigate the after effects. And most likely, the first dirty bomb attack will be against a U.S. military base overseas, because it's easy to move stuff around outside the United States, very difficult to move it around inside the United States. Now, the threat's real. There are several credible designs and plans that have been found in records. 2 actual dirty bombs were deployed by Chechen separatists against Russia. One was foiled and one failed. And then there's these 38 Alizon shoulder-fired rockets that had Cesium-137 tips. And it's kind of interesting. Now, according to Homeland Security, they thought they wasn't real, but according to a Moldova minister who I talked with, he said, yeah, it was real, and the Russians came in and took them away. Suicide bombers are not deterred by the risk of death, so handling a large radioactive source isn't really a deterrent. In the old days, we would say, they'll kill themselves. Well, they won't kill themselves right away. They'll have plenty of time to actually put this thing together before they die. And sources like cobalt-60, cesium-137, and strontium-90 are relatively easy to obtain in large amounts from industry because they're industrial materials. And security issues related to radioactive materials are focused on special nuclear materials used to produce nuclear weapons. So the cobalt, cesium, and strontium kind of slip through the cracks because they're not special nuclear materials. And they're not covered by many of the non-proliferation treaties and strategies, although we are getting better at it. This is the dirty bomb material of choice, is overwhelmingly cesium-137 chloride powder because it's very dispersible, it's a hard gamma, it chemically and physically behaves like potassium chloride, salt substitute, and it's wonderfully dispersible. That's the issue. Now, there's a lot of different sources. Some are large, some are small. Most of the large ones, as you can see here, in the mega Curie and thousands of Curie levels are all cobalt-60, cesium-137, and strontium-90. So that's, again, the big ones of those sources. And even as you come down to teletherapy and blood irradiators, it takes a while. You get below the Curie level before you get other radioisotopes involved. And, of course, things like smoke detectors that have americium in a very small amount, teeny amount, really hard to get large amounts of them. 200 to 300 industrial sterilization units that are in the 100,000 to million Curie range. Research irradiators have cesium-137, cobalt-60. They're in thousands of Curies, and about 100 worldwide. Seed irradiators, which was a big thing in the former Soviet Union states, is about 800 to 20,000 Curie. And again, it goes on down. Only when you get well below Curies do you get a lot of material. Now, some of these bigger irradiators look like this. Put your box of turkey parts on it, on the thing. And of course, the larger the source, the faster you can move that conveyor belt and the more money you make. So there is an economic pressure to increase the source larger and larger at each time. Where we get these kind of radioisotope producers in large amounts, cobalt, cesium, and strontium are shown here. This is a little older slide. I'm sorry, when I was at Los Alamos. There's a couple more that have come online, but again, this is kind of where it is. Notice there's none in the United States. There are two primary non-nuclear radiological threats. So there's the dirty bomb, the car bomb, RDD, and then there's the the cobalt-60 gamma deathmobile, which is kind of funny, which I won't talk about much, but essentially it's a large source, because again, the large cobalt sources that are in the 500,000 to million Curie range, they have to be resupplied because the half-life for cobalt-60 is 5 years, so they have to be resupplied every 5 years. So there's trucks driving around with a mega Curie source in the back. Of course, they're well shielded, but if you just took off the side and back shielding, not the top, because you don't want to be seen from the air, and not the front, because you want the driver to survive a bit, you could drive around and just irradiate, crowded streets, irradiate a lot of people, get a lot of casualties. The problem is it's not a bomb, and they wouldn't know that they were dead for a couple of days, actually. No infrastructure contamination, and I hate to put a value on human life, but it wouldn't cost more than $1 billion to recover from that. All right. Now, and you're more likely to get caught because it's a huge source. On the other hand, a car bomb, casualties are very low, okay, much less than 500, and that's really from the car bomb, not any rad. The LD50 depends upon the dispersion. If you are efficient in dispersing it, individual dose will be very low. Major infrastructure contamination. This is what you want from your dirty bomb. You want to contaminate downtown Manhattan, because every time downtown Manhattan is closed, every day, it costs $60 million. So if you contaminate it and everyone freaks out and then it becomes a Superfund site cleanup and you get EPA involved, then you're talking a year or two before anything could happen. And then you're talking their $500 billion cost. So that is an effective result. It doesn't matter if you kill anyone, because the rad won't kill anyone, but you will shut the place down. So the 10 top targets in the United States, Lower Manhattan, Michigan Avenue in Chicago, San Diego, if you shut those places down for a year, you cost quite a bit. And this is the terrorist choice. Hate to get at the head of terrorists, it's very disturbing. So most likely the real threat is a dirty car bomb. So say you put, 1,000-pound ANFO car bomb, and as soon as the bomb explodes, a plume of entrained radioactive materials and soot is created that begins to spread out from the point of source, and the speed and size depending strongly upon the blast configuration, the weather conditions, and the urban canyon effects of those areas. So look at the top right. You have a time scale, wind direction from the lower right to the upper left. So the bomb explodes, and then you get this small entrained plume right here. And then this is the urban canyon effect. Okay, so at first it spreads down, quote, the urban canyons delineated by large buildings, and in a metropolitan area, they're dominated by large buildings. Then, about 10 minutes later, after that, you get a very small plume that's lofted high and goes very far. The first thing you do is delineate the zones of radiation. So you have ground zero, then you want to find the 1 rem per hour line, and then the 0.1 rem per hour, and then the 2 millirem per hour, because that's the zone that the first responders have to deal with, and you need to know those zones so you can restrict the time you're in those zones if you're responding to this. So who makes the decisions on what to do? To call in secondary and tertiary responders like the DOE RAP teams or the National Guard civil support teams. Who calls those in? Who advises sheltering in place while you're dealing with this? Or who advises to evacuate the area? Who calls for a massive washdown of the affected area by fire hydrant water? And who declares the initial response over? Well, that is the incident commander. And it's going to be a local incident commander, even though by law, the FBI is the incident commander on dirty bombs. However, they don't want anything to do with RAD. They don't know anything about it. They don't want anything to do about it. So they'll say, call DOE, call the civil support teams, who also will not take command. If they refuse to take command, they will support the incident commander, and that will be a local hazmat captain or fire chief or something like that. They're trained to deal with things like this, and they have some training in RAD. Again, the first responders will be police and fire, and with any dirty bomb training at all, will be able to secure that area and map out those different zones, especially the 2 millirem per hour zone. And then, within 6 hours, DOE and the National Guard say, once you call us, we'll be there in 6 hours. They'll come and pretty much advise very well. So within 1 hour, local hazmat teams can arrive to assist first responders, but you need to know it's a dirty bomb, and that's often the case. So pretty much you have to assume, if you have a car bomb in America, you need to assume that it is dirty. So these are the locations of the civil support teams. Every state has a civil support team, and every region has a RAP team. The incident commander should be local, and I say that because they care about their city. Someone coming in from another part of the country isn't going to really care about your city as much as you do. Okay, so that's why it needs to be a local incident commander. And then you pretty much, again, delineate the area. You either tell people to shelter in place, don't go outside because the threat is outside, it's not inside. Modern building AC systems are very good at filtering out this kind of material. It used to be people said, turn off the AC because you'll drag particulates into the building. It turns out it's just the opposite. If you turn off the AC, you'll get what's called a chimney effect. And you will then start to suck particulates into the lower floors and move them up. So it's kind of strange in that regard. We've come up with a 12-point guidance, a 12-step program for dealing with a dirty bomb. And this is based on Sandia, LAN, Los Alamos, and Homeland Security work. And so you go this step by step. So, and we have it a double-sided, heavy laminated thing. You just throw it in the truck or the car because you'll never use it, but if you do, it's there. Now, this is controversial, absolutely controversial. You keep it an incident. You don't declare the incident over. Because if the initial response is over, it devolves to EPA. Nothing will get done for a long time. Also, EPA is, by law, required to pretty much corral every drop of water that's contaminated. So if they're in charge of washing this place down, the other thing is to just evacuate everyone and then slowly clean the place up like DOE cleans up contaminated sites. You have to wash the heck out of this affected area within 72 hours. And again, it's the local incident commander can decide to do this. By law, An incident commander cannot be held responsible for any effects during the response. He cannot be sued, he cannot be fired, because it's an incident. Once he declares the incident, the initial incident over, then everything else comes into play, including legal issues and stuff like that. So this is kind of a bizarre intersection of technical and social and law. How do you wash down an affected area? So a 10 by 10 city block affected area is about 1 billion square feet. That's a large area. We have developed solutions to leach cesium out of cement. Yeah, well, 1 billion square feet, you have that much of that solution on hand? What is it in Jersey in tank cars, ready to roll across the bridge? No, you don't. There's no way you're going to clean up 1 billion square feet with special solutions that you have to manufacture. I mean, just at least not in any time that's relevant. So you pretty much have to wash the heck out of it with fire hydrant water. You need to get it into storm drains and out to whatever, like the Long Island Sound or the Lake Michigan, whatever you're talking about. And this sounds horrible, and the public just, oh my God, no. But if you're talking about a couple of kilograms of cesium-137, which is absolutely horrible, diluted in 100 million gallons of water is nothing. I mean, that's just the way it is. So again, this is this weird fear. All radiation is bad. No threshold dose hypothesis comes into play, even though no one even knows what that is. So it's kind of a weird thing. Now, various types of solutions, again, have been tested, but the surface area is 1 billion square feet. So 100 fire hydrants operating for 24 hours will deliver 100 million gallons of water. And the fire department knows how to wash down buildings, okay? This is their expertise. Don't let anyone else do it. Just let the firemen do their job, and they know how to do it. Do not attempt to contain the water, but encourage it out to sea or any other large body of water, just like we do stormwater drainage. Now, there is cesium removal efficiencies from building and paving materials within the first 72 hours. And the reason I say 72 hours is because after that, cesium will begin to diffuse into concrete slowly, but it will begin to diffuse into it. And once it's diffused into it, you have a problem getting it back out. And since it's a hard gamma, it'll still be pretty much dosing things. Again, depending upon the efficiency of the dispersal, it won't be dosing a lot. But it'll be dosing enough that everyone gets freaked out, and the whole place shuts down for a year or two until we clean it up. The way the material is deposited is just very light aerosol deposit, that third level that I mentioned. The effects of soot chemistry on cesium chemistry, effects of soot on cesium chemistry is important. Resuspension and mobility, meaning if you do this in a dry day and then a big wind comes up, then you will suspend it and move it in a secondary sense. Tracking and traffic effects, people walking on this or driving on it, it'll actually, you can think of it as 2 to 1,000 foot-pounds in terms of driving it into the material. And then there's the bomb pressure insertion around the bomb site. It's not a very large area. So if that happens, you can clean that up. Now, it turns out if you just rinse this off with fire hydrant water, the aerosol part comes up 100%. Again, we looked at materials, limestone, granite, concrete, grout, asphalt, stainless steel and aluminum, metal, glass, wood, rubber, plastic. So it's pretty much the cement, concrete, and asphalt that are the ones that can pick this up the most. The others won't diffuse in much at all, even after a year. Washing it down is very effective if you do it quickly. Bomb pressure, again, crumbling begins to occur, so it's kind of hard to talk about washing down, but that's just the immediate area around that intersection or wherever the car bomb occurred. And the thing about diffusion coefficients is they're mostly controlled by the volumetric water content. The wetter something is, if it's a porous media, the higher the higher the diffusion coefficient. So this is the diffusion, meaning the random molecular walk through a porous media, okay, without the movement of the water itself. So in granite, again, it's very, very low. Cement, it can get very high if it's wet. Now, this is funny because if it happens and it's under dry conditions, there won't be much diffusion. But if you have a little bit of drizzle, isn't enough to wash it off the material, but enough to wet up the material so it diffuses in faster. It's kind of a bizarre requirement of conditions to be perfect. If you leave this stuff on the building for a month in an area that has any rain at all, like New York or Michigan, it won't diffuse into granite, again, more than 1/100th of an inch, but it could diffuse into concrete over 2 inches. And that's the sweet spot. So you can't get it out without defacing the buildings or bringing in 100 million special, gallons of special material to wash it off. And that's where your cost comes in. So that's the $500 billion price tag for this weapon, and that would be a successful attack. So they don't care about killing people. The car bomb, and Sandia did a bunch of this work at New Mexico Tech, their energetics lab. They blew things up. It's fun to watch. If you're in the area, if you're not hurt by the car bomb itself, if you're not hurt by the car bomb, you are unlikely to be contaminated to any significant degree. And so the best thing there is to just go home, take a shower, bag your clothes, take a shower. Don't use conditioners or fixatives or hair gel, but just wash yourself off well. You're good. Okay, which sounds kind of funny because there's a lot of debate upon how to respond. It's like, okay, we need to keep everyone in that area. It's like, oh yeah, right. So you're going to contain 1 million people that are freaked out about a car bomb, a dirty bomb, and you're going to corral them? I don't think so. But that's okay because unless you're hurt, you are not going to be contaminated, and we've shown that. Also, the main part of the dispersal in a good car bomb is about 500 meters. 500 feet. As the first responders approach, you need to basically stop at 500 feet, assume it's a dirty bomb, and if you have any monitors at all, then you need to just, I usually bring my little Canberra alarming dosimeter that are military hardened, actually, which is very nice. And you basically walk in until it starts telling you you're above a 2 rem per hour. And then you go to the 1.1 rem an hour, and then 1 rem an hour, and then you get the hell out of there. You kind of rotate people, and you just basically can walk this off where the affected area is.
Has there ever been a dirty bomb detonated in the United States?
No.
I read about a theft of a quantity of cesium. I think it was either 134 or 137 in Brazil. You probably know about this.
Yeah.
They stole it from I think it was like a decommissioned hospital or something.
Yeah.
And is that is that where?
That's what you kind of think the normal thing would happen, okay? And they didn't know it was radioactive, when they stole it. And they opened it up and it had this pretty blue glow. I'm not kidding. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but unfortunately, some children got in there and it's pretty blue, and they started putting on their faces and stuff like that. It was a mess. Not that many people died. I can't remember, like 10, which is bad. I mean, it's horrible, 10 people dying, but it's not a massive, rad event. The other thing is, I mentioned Chechen separatists tried to. They put two together. One failed to detonate, and the other was foiled before it was set to detonate. But where you're going to get this is you're going to get it from the irradiation industry, because it only costs $3 a Curie for Cesium-137 chloride powder. That's a deal. You need to have a sympathetic food irradiation manager in Riyadh, whatever, who can order this stuff for you and give it to you. It's not going to happen in the United States. So you have to smuggle it into the U.S., which is tough to do now, because we're pretty much monitored pretty well. That's why I say the first attack will probably be against the U.S. military base in some place like Riyadh.
You probably know a little bit about the sealed source recovery accident in Seattle. Is there anything closer to a dirty bomb than that?
Yeah, the amounts of those weren't that high. So this is where the L&T comes in. It's
right.
like, my God, you just mentioned anything. And it's, sends fear through everyone. But yeah, the sources were not that hot. They were not that big.
But that was like a little bit of material, and maybe a tiny fraction of it came out of the building. Did we learn a lot from that, or just a little bit from? Because I know we had like some response learning. And some.
Yeah. I mean, it was okay. It was actually handled not badly, and no one was actually hurt.
Thank you for bringing this up. I was actually walking down San Francisco like 4 days ago thinking about this idea, and something came to mind. Someone told me once, dilution is the solution.
To pollution, yep.
And is it really that simple? Like you said, hey, if you're not impacted by the explosion, you're fine, go home, take a shower.
Yeah,
like
it is. See, this is, rad is so weirdly misunderstood purposefully, I mean, we purposefully, not me, but not us, but we purposely, as a country, scared the heck out of everyone about nuclear. And it was intentional during the Cold War. I mean, the Cold War was supposed to scare everyone about using nuclear, and it worked, actually. It just kind of got the huge difference between nuclear power and nuclear weapons wrong. It's really hard to do this, and it's really hard to give someone a really big blast of rad. And even those people that have had it, you know, the DOE sites, most of them didn't die from it. In fact, Atomic Man up in Hanford, where I am, he got the biggest blast of anyone. He died at ripe old age from heart failure. It had nothing to do with the rad. And they had to work on him in hazmat suits. It's kind of funny. Yeah, in the hospital. Oh, I just want to say, so thorium, uranium, plutonium, anything else except cesium, cobalt, and strontium are not good as dirty bomb materials. So the idea, when everyone says, you hear this all the time, oh, spent nuclear fuel, oh, you can make a dirty bomb out of it. No, you can't. You know, it's solid oxide, metals, ceramics, whatever the form is in, it's not dispersible. And it's much harder to get those materials. I mean, you can just order cesium, you know, chloride for $3 a Curie. Why go anywhere else?
Bargain.
It's a bargain price.
So one more question.
Yes.
Yeah, if you had the issue with cesium with concrete, why wouldn't you just seal it in?
Because it's still a hard gamma. So it would have to diffuse in about 3 feet in order to become not important. And that's, you know, so it diffuses in a couple of inches and then it kind of stops. Yeah. And again, it depends upon the quality of the concrete. So if you're looking at Chinese concrete from the 90s, sorry.
All right, Jim, you're a star, man. I'm so grateful for you doing this.
Thank you.